Hi, I'm Scott Hamilton, Rockfile, back with another podcast review, this time of the 4K edition of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The film is now celebrating its 20th anniversary. This thing shouldn't even exist. I mean, seriously. It is a Sony-produced movie in Mandarin Chinese, made for $17 million. Decent-sized budget for this kind of movie. Academy Award nominated winning actors. Incredible music. Cinematography. They went full bore in making a Chinese epic to release worldwide in U.S. theaters. It should not exist. But as you find out in some of the extras on the 4K, by the way, this was one of Sony's first 4K discs and looks amazing, but I'll get to that. It came out 4 years ago. I don't know why. Well, I haven't, I haven't rewatched it. This was a movie I watched several times in the theater. I owned it on DVD back in the day, and I imported the UK Steelbook version of the Blu-ray, and I've watched it, I think, once or twice. But it's a movie I know very well. It's an Ang Lee film. He had done many other things before this, like Ice Storm, which wouldn't lead you to believe he would do a martial arts epic. But, he said that in the extras that martial arts movies are basically musicals, and he's always wanted to make a musical, and they say that every Chinese director has a martial arts film in them, so he really wanted to make it. He had an idea for this for a long time, and they finally got to make it. Another thing you learn in the extras, and I was going to make this point, but somebody made it for me, so I'll give them credit, but it was kind of the perfect time to release this movie. In 1998, Blade came out and introduced martial arts. There had been martial arts movies since long before Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. We got into the 80s and 90s with Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme. There have been martial arts movies. But by the end of the 90s, they had kind of become a caricature and a little bit of a joke. And although Asia was still putting out martial arts movies, the United States wasn't really. Those kind of movies, but not real, well-choreographed, true martial arts films. So when Blade came out in 98, they decided to up the ante on the martial arts fights, and it was a huge hit. In 99, The Matrix came out and took that to the nth degree, to infinity. They got Yuen Woo-ping, who is one of the greatest martial arts choreographers in all of Asia, to do the choreography for the Matrix movies. And that is a martial arts movie. There are a lot of martial arts fights in that film. And people loved it, and it was a huge success. So a year later for Crouching Tiger to come out and have even more martial arts in a fantasy romantic drama, it was just the right timing, because audience had been primed to enjoy martial arts more. And this was a movie that appealed to the art house crowd. So the art house crowd felt that they could finally watch a martial arts movie because, well, it was directed by Ang Lee, who had all these art house hits before this. He had done Sense and Sensibility, for crying out loud. So a lot of people went to this movie that wouldn't have normally seen it. And yes, I heard from some of my friends and my parents' friends and things like that some people didn't enjoy it because it was subtitled and whatever. I guess on Blu-ray and 4K there's a dub. I honestly have never heard the English dub. It'd be great if they got the actors to do their own voices, because a lot of them do speak English. But Zhang Ziyi, or however you pronounce her name, it was one of her first films. I don't think she spoke any English at that time. But the movie was made for $17 million and went on to gross over $213 million. And what was it, a year or two ago, Netflix made a sequel to it. Matter of fact, that's why I rewatched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, because I want to watch the sequel. I still haven't watched it. And I know it's not going to be as good. They did bring back one of my favorite actresses of all time, Michelle Yeoh. But I'm not going to talk about the sequel because, it's a different animal. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a classic. I rewatched it a few days ago and just was blown away by how good a movie it is. If you cut the martial arts out of it, obviously you have a much shorter movie, but you still have a good story there. Of two people who have known each other for years and who have loved each other for years, but through circumstances not their making, they cannot get together. And it's just how it ends up is tragic. The movie's 20 years old. I will get into spoilers. You know, he, on his deathbed, Chow Yun-fat admits he loves her. She kisses him and he dies. You know, I mean, they could never say I love you before that because of, you know, the societal situation that they were in this time, in this place in China. The acting is top notch. The directing, the cinematography, the effects, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. Some of the complaints I've heard over the years is they fly. It is a martial arts romantic fantasy, and if you can believe that these people can do supernatural things in their fighting, then why can't they jump a little higher or float a little longer or whatever? I mean, they're doing things in the fight scenes that are almost not humanly possible unless it's well choreographed. Everybody in the movie did their own fight scenes, and they're incredibly well filmed and super fast. I love Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If you haven't watched it in years, go back and visit it. It's a great story. It's a love story. It's an action story. It's well filmed. It holds up. Now, the 4K came out in 2016. 5 out of 5 stars on all the Blu-ray and 4K sites. Watching it now, as I own about 200 4Ks, I don't know that I would give it. I would probably give it 4.5 out of 5 because blowing it up on an 85-inch screen, some scenes were grainier than others. I would have liked that to be a little more universal through the thing. And there were some scenes that were just really grainy. And I know it was filmed on film, and this is a native 4K transfer directly from the film. But I don't like DNR and wiping details away. But it did border on noise in a few seasons. But overall, it is a great transfer. It looks very filmic. I don't want you to think it's bad. Again, 4.5 or 4.75 out of 5 for me. It's really good, but I had to take a couple points off because there were a couple scenes that just didn't look as brilliant as the rest of them. But if you can park it's a fantasy in the first place to have a camera looking in on this romance and drama a couple hundred years ago in feudal China. I honestly like the fact that they fly through the air and stuff. I look at that as like I would a ballet or part of the choreography. The movements are beautiful. It helps tell the story of these nearly mythical superhero beings involved in this highly romantic and ultimately kind of tragic story. It's great storytelling on any level. It just happens to have a lot of martial arts fights in it. But you've got Ang Lee, who's won multiple Academy Awards. You've got a whole bunch of great actors and people behind the cameras and things. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon holds up 20 years later because it's just a damn good movie compared to any kind of movie. It's just a well-made 2 hours spent watching a film. Like I said earlier, the 4K 4 years ago was an incredible 4K. By today's standards, it is what it is. It is an older film, has some film grain, some scenes are a little greenier than others. But other than that, this is the way to watch the movie. The new Dolby Atmos soundtrack is great. I love the music. The solos by Yo-Yo Ma. Tan Dunn composed all the music for this. And it's one of those soundtracks that I own and put on, not when I want to revisit the movie in my head, just when I want to revisit the music. It's absolutely gorgeous and speaks to my soul much like, Star Wars did when I was 11 years old. The music just speaks to me regardless of the movie. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's celebrating 20 years. It's coming out in a new steelbook, so if you don't already own it and you have a 4K setup, I would recommend picking it up so that down the road, again, I mentioned this in other podcasts, 4K is important because TVs are going to continue to get bigger. Eventually, you'll have a wall in your house that will be a TV, kind of, and you won't be able to blow up a 1080p or less resolution at that size. It will just look terrible. So 4K and 8K will be important as TVs get larger, and if you have the ability to watch one of these fine 4K films on a nicely calibrated and very large set with a great system, it's an epic experience. It's a great film. celebrating its 20th anniversary. You can pick up Crouching Tiger now for about $20, or you can wait for this new Steelbook, and I think it's $25 to $30. So there you go. I'm Scott Hamilton. I'm Rockfile. All my links are below. We're taking some time during this virus situation to review some older movies because not as many new movies are coming out. And I am going to try and do more horror movies this month. I just rewatched Cabin in the Woods, so I'll be doing a podcast of that. But I wanted to do like almost all horror movie podcasts, and it just hasn't worked out one thing or another so far this month in the first week. So we'll see what happens as we get closer to Halloween. I'm Scott Hamilton. Thank you very much for listening.